is it time to stop testing and just get on with the removal of cladding from buildings at risk? That is the view of the National Housing Federation, which represents the English housing associations. Social housing has been particularly prominent in all of this. David Orr is the chief executive of the Federation and is here. Very good evening to you. So what would be the case for stopping the testing programme now?
Our first priority is to ensure that people feel safe and secure at home. Many people don't feel that, and having had 120 different tests from different samples from different buildings in different parts of the country, I think we can now say that according to the tests that the government is carrying out, this cladding is not fit for purpose. We don't need to test any more of it. Frankly, no one living in a property that's got this cladding is going to feel comfortable because of these results. There's a lot of time and energy going into moving kit and equipment around the country to do the tests. Let's not do that. Let's take a step back and prioritise exactly what we do to make people feel safe and secure at home.
Now, because is it necessarily the case that a building that has that cladding on is an unsafe building? Or is it possible that the cladding can be constructed in a way that is safer, or the building can be fire safe in other ways despite the cladding?
I think it's possible for buildings to be safe, even with that cladding, in certain circumstances. But in a way, that is no longer the point. The point is that government has initiated this testing regime. Every single sample has failed, so we should just assume...
We're not learning anything from the test.
No, and this cladding is no longer the answer.
So your priority would be buildings that maybe, like Grenfell, have one staircase and don't have sprinkler systems, and you would perhaps start with those, can get the cladding off, and maybe down the line get the cladding off.
Yeah, you see, in a way, this is not now an issue about housing, it's an issue about cladding and how people feel about it. We have cladding on all kinds of places, hospitals, prisons, schools, student housing, private sector, social housing, right across the board. And people need to feel reassured. And I think at the moment, activity is happening immediately following a test. We need to take a step back from that. This is a major systemic failure. All of these claddings have been fitted according to the rules that were in place at a time, according to the regime presided over by government. We now have government saying, according to these tests, it's not safe. So we have to prioritise which are the least safe, where do we take action, and the government has to pay for it, Evan.
Well, that's a very important thing, because you just slipped in there that this was cladding put on and just allowed to be put on, and so somehow kind of pointing the finger, if you like, back at government. I mean, are you clear in your head whether this cladding was specified by engineers in breach of regulations, whether the cladding was allowed by regulations, or whether it was not specified by engineers but was simply put up by contractors saving a bob or two? Because I'm not asking you what the answer is, I'm saying, are you clear as to the answer on that?
What I'm clear about is that anyone who's commissioning a new building or these kinds of regeneration projects have to go through a whole process of safety. They have to go through planning, through building control, and there are experts involved at each stage. Architects who have to sign off the design, designers who have to, and fire people who have to say this is safe, building control that has to give its consent, and at some point a pass mark has been stamped to allow these buildings to be fitted with this cladding. If that regime is no longer fit for purpose, then there is an urgent necessity for us to know what in future we will regard as being safe, so that we can equip all of these buildings and make them safe.
Yeah. And just in terms of costs, I mean, the government has talked about 600 buildings, clad buildings, testing, assuming they all need doing. It was a couple of £1 million to put the cladding, I think, on Grenfell. You're talking about $1 billion or two.
We're talking about a very substantial sum of money, which should not have to be paid by the remaining residents.
David Orr, thank you very much.
Thank you.